Welcome to the Holiness Today podcast. In this archives episode, listen to Lecture 14 on the Doctrine of Atonement, given by Mildred Bangs Wynkoop at Nazarene Theological Seminary in the fall of 1979.
But when senility comes, do you hold that person responsible as you do a 25-year-old who is in the full strength of intellectual and spiritual powers? I remember, since coming from Nampa particularly, I remember the man, leader in our church there for many years who became the mayor of the town for a while. A marvelous leader, a Christian leader, and he became quite senile and died doing things that he would never have thought of doing. He was a marvelous Christian, and people didn't know how could he get to heaven. But you see, God deals with us as we are able to respond to him. But it takes the full measure of where we are at any one time. You take a child of 7 or 10 or 12, and you can't make a person of 25 or 30 out of him suddenly, and require the same kind of understandings. And so it is a full measure of what we are able to be at any one time. And with this in mind, Dan, I would like to talk a little bit about this personness that we bring to God and the responsibility under terms of atonement. I think, did I tell you about the article, Me? I guess it was in Nampa. In an article, believe it or not, in Newsweek, April 17, 1978, it's the lead article in that. My turn. There's always somebody who takes a turn in this magazine. Margaret Halsey. And she has done a superb job, I think, of describing us as we have needs for atonement. She talks about the me generation that we have here. You'll see how this all fits into what I'm after here. Today's young adults have what she calls the me generation. And I think I can do it better if I just read it to you, just excerpts from it. The false idea is that inside every human being, there is a glorious, talented, and overwhelmingly attractive personality. So we're always hunting for this me. You know the song, I gotta be me, I gotta be me. You know that one? Or is that too old, please? No. So for a while, there was just a forgetting about being courteous, cooperative, considerate. Just pushing that all aside so one would do exactly what one felt like doing. Just forget all this stuff about being nice to people, because you're trying to find that inner attractive me. But she says inside each of us is a mess of unruly, primitive impulses. And she describes this a little bit. But this gets into our advertising, and backing up the human potential industry is the advertising profession, which also encourages the idea of a wonderful inner me that will be unveiled to a suddenly respectful world upon a purchase of this or that commodity. If you get the right car, or if you use the right toothpaste, smoke the right cigarette, suddenly this wonderful me come out. But she said an individual does not exist in a vacuum. We're in a world of relationships. And the self and self-awareness seems to cause many new narcissists and members of the me generation a lot of trouble. You know what I mean by the narcissist? Who is it? Was it Narcissus. found himself looking into a pool of water, saw what a beautiful thing was down there, and then they're fell in love with himself. And it's just a pretty good illustration. We hear about the search for identity and a kind of distress called an identity crisis. I don't know who I am. But she said we do know who we are. We just don't like what we find. What people really mean is that they are not satisfied with who they are. So they turn their backs on their honest knowledge of themselves, which with patience and courage could start them on the road to genuine development, and embark on a quest for the will-o'-the-wisp called identity. I think we wouldn't believe that we could take that step quite so soon, but at least there's a very fine analysis here. The search for identity is predestined to fail. Identity is not found, it is built. It is built in the myriad choices, small and large, which we make. And this is not something that we discover away down here, but something which is built. The self of the inner, the myriad choices, the fatal weakness of the currently fashionable approach to personality is that the self of inner wonderfulness is static. Being perfect, it does not need to change. So that once you discover this supposed wonderfulness within yourself, you can just go off and live it up, because to can't change is so wonderful that you just there's no need for discipline. The self is not a handsome god or goddess waiting coyly to be revealed. On the contrary, its complexity, confusion, and mystery have proved so difficult that throughout the ages, men and women have talked about losing themselves. They want to lose themselves in something. And this has given rise, I am just pretty sure, of that whole theology which says that we are to kill self, death of self, by contrast, instead of the way that Jesus talked to us about it. The current glorification of self-love will turn out in the end to be a no-win proposition, because in questions of personality or identity, what counts is not who you are, but what you do. We find, and then she quotes, by their fruits you shall know them, and by their fruits they shall know themselves. Their theology fails. There is some there, but I think the idea is very appropriate to understanding. Now, in contrast to this, and which is true to the gospel, I found in the Asbury Seminarian, that's from Asbury, the Asbury Seminarian Journal, July 71, an article by Tim Smith. And he tells us in three points what the goal of the gospel is. And it is much more optimistic, and yet it does not fall back into the failure that this woman has described. First, the Wesleyan position teaches that a discovery, not a rejection of the self, is the first work of the gospel. This is as God is calling to us. There are 3 steps here. And this is that preliminary call, so that we find out who we are, because God is dealing with us. Where He does not ask us to reject ourselves, but He is discovering us, so that penitence brings not destructive, but saving identity. So in penitence, in being repentant, we are turning against this me philosophy, bringing us by God's grace not to our destruction, but to the saving of ourselves. Because God wants something, as we noted here in Charles Wesley's hymn, that which has come to grace, God is asking us to return, and it needs to be a whole thing. Secondly, he talks about forgiveness. Divine forgiveness and our choice to trust in God's love enables us to recover possession of our true selves. I like the way he has expressed this. You would have to read his what he has said about it, which we don't have time to do right now. I'll repeat it. The experience of the divine forgiveness and our choice to trust in God's love enables us to recover possession of our true selves. And he has one statement here that I think I should put in here, even at the expense of taking too much time. The morbid need to escape from oneself is done away. Do you know anything about? Do you know your generation enough to know how people are trying to escape themselves? This accounts for an awful lot of the destructiveness that many people go through and encourage. They almost want to die. Now, the last one, because it has to do with the wholeness of holiness. Holiness makes possible a life of self-fulfillment. Makes possible a life of self-fulfillment. And this makes possible this statement: man, made in God's image, is of infinite worth. Man, made in God's image, is of infinite worth. And we're told that by what God has done for us. Otherwise, we would never be able to know it. And then one short sentence more, which I think is rich. Wesleyan perfectionism makes the person supreme. Now, this means a lot to me. Set July 71. I think it must be bound in the library. I would imagine so. If they don't have it, I'll make request that they get as full a set of the Asbury seminarians, because that, as well as the Wesleyan Theological Journal series, is just full of good things. Yeah. Wesleyan perfectionism makes the person supreme. Now, what he was doing in this article was to answer the hippies in, what was that, San Francisco, Asbury. Am I saying it Asbury? Where they were all down in that area, living together and trying to find. They were flower children. They would give anything. They would give whatever had been given to them or whatever they defined, share it with everybody else, even to their own loss. There were some things about those young people that was noble, and not finding what they were looking for, they have become very disillusioned. And so he was trying to give an answer. The Christian religion and what it stands for truly is what you are looking for. And it's a beautiful article. Now, I'd like to list, and we can get started on this. No, I do have 10 minutes here. I want to go into the cult, the cult problem just enough. I can't do very much, but because it tells us something about what to expect in Christianity as over against the other ways of trying to solve our problems. The Gothard way being one. And I think the Gothard way certainly is one of the highest in all of these, because he does attempt very much to be Christian. But because he hasn't taken everything into consideration, there have been problems there. But I'd like to give you a list of the characteristics of cults, which does not define all of them. But as I have been looking at the cult and finding characteristics which are characteristic of some cult, I'd like to give you several things here that are not very well organized, and we certainly cannot do. And I think we'll do that. Then on Tuesday we can give the Christian alternative to it, and see how the call to this seems to be identical. We have to then be able to see which call it is we're going to answer. The first one is that there is either no Christology or a faulty Christology. And I was speaking to one, I suppose the most responsible person who has been, that I talked to relative to Gothard. I mentioned the fact that there was very little of Christ, reference to Christ, and this man, who was very, very much involved in this, said, yes, that's right. So it is not something that I'm just cooking up for you. But there is either no Christology in some of these, or there is a faulty one. There is, secondly, an unbiblical idea of God. Now, these two things alone, if they were corrected, would make the cult itself impossible, because these are key points. The unchristian, unbiblical idea of God. Where do we get a biblical idea of God? Now, don't just tell me the Bible. Christ. So you go back right to Christ to see that's the key of you. The good one, man is essentially evil. Mankind, essentially evil, needing control, not redemption. Redemption's impossible, but needing control. So there is a restrictiveness right here. In the fourth place, there is a discrediting of the rational mind. I think I mentioned, maybe, I know I did do another class, but there are some interpretations of spiritual gifts that discredit the rational mind and anything natural as being unredeemable as such, so that God could not possibly use the rational mind, nor could he use the natural talents. So he has to give us an extra gift. And then you have to find that. It's like hunting an Easter egg that's been hidden. And you go to all kinds of maneuvers to try to find that gift. And some people never do, and they're discouraged beyond words because they can't find it. Why can't they find it? Because if the rational mind has already been discredited. How can you judge whether a thing is supernatural when you cut off the only thing you can judge by? So you see, when you start into this, there is a discouragement of thinking. No cult can stand argument. Fifth, there is an ontological distinction between races, sexes, cultures, and so forth. And we can work on that after that. 6. Am I going too fast? or where shall I back up now? Ontological distinction, and that further than that, between races and sexes and cultures and so forth. In other words, certain colors are more valuable than other colors. Certain sexes have more on the ball than the others. Cultures are different. The sixth one then is a distrust of the church. And that's the reason they're formulating themselves. The church has failed. In some cases, the church is sinful, and therefore we should get as far away from it as possible. But it certainly is a distrust of the church. The church does not satisfy. Therefore, it really doesn't matter whether you are in it or not. 7, there is a tendency, very strong tendency, toward elitism and retreatism. Elitism, being a little higher on a social scale. And retreatism, running away from the world and having a big meeting and listening to the listening to the propaganda over and over and over again. We're a little bit better than anybody else. We can't mix with the world too much. And the next one in the 7th point, is divisiveness. They divide. This is not a tendency toward any unity of the body of Christ. 8, there is either a distrust of theology or there is apparently no theology. It is just the leader who declares what is true. And 9 then would be if they use the Bible at all, it is by proof texting. I think I mentioned that yesterday. That is, just drawing bits of scripture completely out of context and putting it together. And this, of course, issues in private interpretation. You can get any kind of a doctrine that you want if you just do it this way. You don't have to go to all the trouble of going to seminary and learning how to do exegesis. Because exegesis is somehow disturbing to this system. The 10th one is a one-person leader who cannot share with another, forbids questioning. You never have open forum questions or challenges, and this one person demands absolute obedience. You surrender to a person. You do not surrender to God. You surrender to a person. You're not even invited to surrender to Christ unless this person himself or herself claims to be Christ. You know anybody who does that? No. And 11, we'll go on another 2. He forbids the followers to reveal teachings. It is a secretive thing. You as a follower are incapable of sharing this, right? So you keep still. And don't talk to anybody. There are some that inculcate such guilt when this is done that it is just psychologically painful when I watch this happen. I don't think Gother goes so far as this, but many people understand it as that. He evidently asks them not to share. And so many people that I had talked to say, I just can't tell you, and I can't tell you what we do. And if I just keep pushing, I have an awful mean streak in me that way. They just go away feeling guilty. And one woman, wouldn't for several years discuss this thing. And just as I went down to California, this past to Point Loma, I met her, and she, after years of breaking away from this thing, she was afraid to say anything about the meter until we were able to talk, she and I together, I think, somewhat this her reason. And she could clear her mind and feel free again. But it's a bondage. This bondage just comes so tightly on a person because there has to be absolute loyalty. If there's any loss of loyalty, of course, the whole thing just breaks up. And of course, this was it. Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit.
Thank you for listening to the Holiness Today podcast. If you enjoyed this production and wish to hear more, visit holinesstoday.org/podcast or find us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.